Most companies have a culture the way a fridge has a smell. Ew. Today on Joseph Jaffe is Not Famous, Walt Brown, Uncle Walt, as he's affectionately known, author of Attract or Repel, joins me to unpack why your team's confused, your roles are chaos, and how to finally build a culture worth keeping. So bring Febreze because it's time for a deep clean. Let's get on with the show.
Hello, and thanks for joining us. I'm Kevin Nealon. Our top story tonight, it appears congratulations are in order. We are monitoring things closely as details continue to come in, but it seems... Yes, I have confirmation. We're talking about you, Joseph. Congratulations. You really outdid yourself this time, which probably wasn't that hard. Our team has discovered footage from one of the many celebrations taking place in your honor. Stay away from drugs, kids. Now for some deeper analysis, let's go live via satellite to our special guest commentator, Other Kevin. Other Kevin, what are your thoughts on all this? Speechless, Kevin. Wow. Just wow. Insightful as always. Thank you. Well, I'm now being told that we are out of time and that I should pull this lever. I'm Kevin Nealon. Thanks for watching. Take care, Jimmy.
Well, surprise, surprise, surprise. This is me, comedian George Wallace, the new Mr. Vegas. I'm here with you tonight. I'm famous. But let me tell you something. Your host tonight, Joseph Jaffe, he's not famous. He's not famous at all. But that's all we can do for you tonight. That's the best we can do. You know, Joseph is like Jon Stewart wannabe. He's like a Howard Stern wannabe. He is not famous, but he's your host, okay? Maybe he'll do good tonight. This is what you paid for, this is what you get. So ladies and gentlemen, maybe you want to show him some love. Please welcome the not so famous Mr. Joseph Jaffe. Make some noise.
There was one guy I was dealing with getting a little bit pissy over the kid interrupting the call thing, and I'm like, appreciate.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, please. Yeah.
My bad. Please continue. It's very alliterative.
They are going to be the ones powering the experiences that every customer has.
Preference has power. I'm pretty sure Cato would say to me when I do every show, stop.
I think he would.
Those pieces are popping. Wait till you get the invoice.
Here. I have a question. When's the last time you danced? When's the last time you laughed?
Right now. I don't want to dance with you.
When's the last time you threw a kite?
Toasted Oreo.
Look at you. You are insane.
How did I do that?
You're insane.
Welcome to another insane, sublime, and yet ridiculous, and yet sublime episode of Joseph Jaffe is Not Famous. And why would I be famous when I have the very famous Uncle Walt, Mr. Walt Brown? I've been lucky enough to meet him in the flesh. He is not AI. He is not a hologram. He is one of the very first implementers in my coaching program that I help small businesses with, called EOS. He is a warm man who looks a little bit like Jeff Garlin from Curb Your Enthusiasm. I have many things to say for him, but we'll let him defend himself, and he will be coming up very, very shortly. Now, Uncle Walt, as you're watching in the green room, you can see how fun is a huge part of this. It is one of my three uniques. And it certainly is something that we would call unique ability. We may very well talk about unique ability. In fact, I've been lucky enough to crystallize my why statement, which is really all about the idea of helping people, whether it's leadership teams, whether it's business owners or entrepreneurs, get unstuck, return to growth, and become forever changed. In fact, I started this show in March of 2020 when everyone was quite literally stuck at home or stuck in general. And, you know, when you're stuck, the antidote to being stuck is to get unstuck. And the thing about stickiness is sometimes you can be moving but actually not going anywhere. So it doesn't just mean paralyzed with fear. Sometimes it just means we're moving in all these directions. And I actually saw Uncle Walt do this most beautiful little diagram on, I actually saw him yesterday. It's very weird. I saw him yesterday and he drew this heart, and the heart had arrows and all the arrows were moving in different directions. And then he showed ultimately what we want is a heart filled with arrows moving in the same direction. That's what it means to be unstuck. Well, when we talk about growth, that's my business coaching. He's a coach. I'm a coach. We're all coaches. And the thing again is growing. We're going to talk about culture today. Growing is not just about EBITDA and market share and quant. It's about qual, growth, growing up. Growing in terms of maturation, growing in terms of prioritization, growing in terms of doing the right thing, growing in terms of getting smarter and wiser and not making the same mistakes over and over again. And to what end? For me, it is what I call being or becoming forever changed, the name of my 6th book. My first non-business book that's really all about how a global pandemic changed my direction, my purpose, and my life. I talk about the formula, which is amor, love what you do. Veritas, be true to yourself, your purpose, your why, your authenticity. And then finally, vigor, which is stay the course. Resilience, the idea of grit, determination, never giving up, never giving in, having enough energy and stamina to be able to play the long game. But now it's time to stay seated and deliver my seated soliloquy, which is always connected to my guest. And so when I say it's connected to my guest and it's called Stinky, I just want you to realize that does not mean my guest is stinky at all. In fact, I'm reminded by a statement that the founder of the entrepreneurial operating system talks about, and he says, employees should reek of their culture. It's such a beautiful visual, or maybe, you know, what's smelly, what's not ephemeral. I don't know what the word is, the smelly version of visual, but it just conjures up this meaning that you reek of you're oozing your culture. You're sweating it in a good way. I suppose it can also be in a bad way or even an ugly way. But this idea of just culture is like a part of us, and it can be a stench, or it can be just this beautiful smell, this aroma, this something that you just smell, breathe in and breathe out, and you live it, and it's part of you. And even if you are sweating it out and it's coming through your pores, it's just, you know, it's I don't know, when you sweat, you're working, aren't you? And you're enjoying the work. And sometimes it's painful and messy, but ultimately you are burning calories, you are tearing muscle, you're rebuilding it strongly. Can you see what I mean when I talk about stinky? Smelly cat, even, you know, smelly cat makes me think of Friends and Phoebe Cates, you know, and can you see what I'm talking about? This is not clean. This is not scripted. This soliloquy, this is messy. This is all about passion. And when you really love what you do and you love the people that you work with, and when you feel like you're making a difference of being compensated appropriately and have time to pursue other passions, whether you call that what we call the EOS life or you call it being alive, it doesn't matter, because I will tell you that there is a saying that said no one ever said on their deathbed, I should have spent more time in the office. And I reject that notion, because these days we work from home anyway. So does that mean you didn't want to spend more time at home? No, you've got to just love what you do so much that maybe you actually did want to spend one more day in the office. Fancy that. What a crazy thought. Well, someone who is absolutely not crazy is Uncle Walt. For the past 2 decades, Walt Brown has been immersed and tumbled in the world of human-to-human trust and how this trust forms the foundation of organizational health. Over years of observation and action, Walt has developed actionable models and measures that allow companies to remove the yoke, creating high levels of measurable buy-in, inclusion, trust, and engagement. That sounds like a little bit of Lencioni's pyramid, doesn't it? His work has directly impacted the lives of over 55,000 employees in 185 different companies. Now, that is mightily impressive. Let's welcome him to the show. Welcome back, Uncle Walt.
Thank you, Joseph. Man, the smelly refrigerator. So that whole time I heard that, and then my mind was over there, opening up a refrigerator. Oh my gosh! Or do the lights work? Is it clean? Is it well organized? Or is there a bunch of old stuff in there that's smelly? When was the last time you cleaned your refrigerator out? Does your culture smell? Is it can you find stuff? I mean,
it's rich, right?
Is it actually in the refrigerator? What you're looking for in that refrigerator? Yes or no?
Well,
it's like, wow.
Well,
I'm going to take that, man. I'm going to borrow that.
You better. You can almost, I'm going to help you with the marketing here. What you do is you take Febreze, and then you can just relabel the Febreze with, with the 7 critical needs. But you missed one thing as well, which is mold. Mold.
Oh yeah, it's clean. Is it clean? That was, yeah, or is it just nasty?
So you can define cultural mold. What is cultural mold?
Oh gosh, where does it live and where does it grow? What creates it? What brings it in? Do you wash your fruit before you put it into the fruit drawer, or you just dump it in there? I mean,
I love it. I love it. It is so visual, and actually, I always find a quote for my guest, and the quote that I found, speaking of which, I never normally show it so early, but I think this one's a very interesting one. Corporate culture is the only sustainable competitive advantage that is completely within the control of the entrepreneur. Now,
so take that. And
yeah.
So I've lived through this world called the internet, the beginning of the internet. And I was in the mail order catalog business. That's like buggy whip talk. And all of a sudden the internet came out, and we used to be the opinion leaders, and we would print stuff and send it out. And we were able to be held as the opinion leader for 6 months, 3 months, however long it took for competitors to match it. And then once you got the internet out, there was this thing called instant competitor imitation. And nowadays with AI, if I wanted to start a freaking plumbing company, I could go in and tell me everything I need to know about starting a plumbing company. And it would immediately tell me what to do. Instant competitor imitation. So taking that exact same quote you had, the only defense against instant competitor imitation is your culture or your engaged employees or your people who really buy in. That's the only defense we have.
I love this for a couple of reasons, because I learned from college through continuing to learn sustainable competitive advantage. And, I'm a marketer. We learned about differentiation. There's a variety of different approaches or different responses to what is sustainable competitive advantage, barriers to entry, barriers to exit. I think the thing that really intrigued me and why I chose this quote for you was saying that this is the only almost lever that is completely within the control of the entrepreneur, because it implies everything else is not in your control, but as it relates to competitive advantage, this one is. So you succeed, it's because of you. You fail, guess what? It's because of you too.
Yeah, period.
Exclamation point.
A lot of people say, oh gosh, if it weren't for people, it'd be easy. But actually, if you really think about it, the people component should be almost your easiest component. Like, so I've Joseph, other stuff. So I was just thinking about it this morning. I do think in the shower. I'm one of those guys that thinks in the shower. But I've raced sailboats a ton, and I'm really interested in seeing patterns in nature. Like, markets are invisible. You can't control it. There's so many things that we're dealing with that are invisible and non-controllable, and we think that we can control them by being smart, as Lencioni talks about. But frankly, the only thing that we really can control and outline and put in place is like a measurable culture. I typically don't like to use the word culture. It's so soft nowadays, but that's ultimately what we're talking about. We all, every entrepreneur, when we start a company, we dream of this culture we want to have. Who we're going to surround ourselves with? What do we want everybody to believe in? I mean, so that's the only thing. I hadn't really ever thought about it that hard. Truly is the only thing that we have control over. We can hire and fire people out on our own will all day long.
Look, we're going to. I want to get back, and I really want to peel this particular onion with respect to a statement that you made, because it's too provocative and important to just gloss over, which is managing your people or maximizing your people should be the easiest function. We know it's the most important. We know that most of the issues that every company has are people issues. So why isn't it? I'm thinking that you spoke about the magic man, Lencioni, and to set the scene, because we're going to talk about open and honest. We're going to talk about smart and healthy.
Are you thinking about running his video?
I'm thinking about running his video. Should we do that?
Yeah, I think the latest one. Yeah, that'd be awesome, man. I've been sharing that at the beginning of session days with teams over the last 6 weeks. You didn't know that? That's hilarious, man.
No, let's hope that this is the one you were thinking of.
Okay, today we're talking about the fundamental reason that an organization succeeds or fails. And at the highest level, it comes down to two things. An organization has to be both smart and it has to be healthy. Let me explain what I mean by that. A smart organization is one that is good at what I call the decision sciences. These are the things we study in business school and in business magazines and newspapers. And the decision sciences include things like technology and strategy and marketing and finance. Now, these are the fundamentals of business. And I used to be a management consultant, and this is what we studied. And I like it, and it's interesting. But it's only half the equation, and it gets far too much attention relative to the other element of a successful organization, a required element. And that is, an organization also has to be healthy. And this is what a healthy organization looks like. A healthy organization has minimal politics and dysfunction, minimal confusion, where people just don't know what they're supposed to be doing. But it has high levels of morale and productivity. And the last thing is, it has really low turnover among its best people. So, when I talk to executives about this and I show them the difference between smart and healthy, almost always they look at this healthy side and they say, if I could address politics and confusion and dysfunction, and if I could get morale and productivity to be higher, people coming to work and being excited about what they do and getting more done, and if I could ensure that my best people don't want to leave, that would be the biggest thing I can do. But then they usually say, but wait a second. This is probably pretty hard to measure, isn't it? And I admit it is. It might actually involve some emotional content too. And I'm like, yeah, it does. And many of them say, well, let's go focus more on this. It's like that old episode of I Love Lucy I saw when I was a kid, where Ricky comes home from work and finds Lucy crawling around the living room on her hands and knees. She's eavesdropping. And he sees her and says, what are you doing? And she makes up an excuse. She says, I'm looking for my earrings. And he says, you lost your earrings out here in the living room? And she says, no, I lost them in the bedroom, but the light is much better out here. And the truth is, the light is better on the smart side. There's no emotion. It's easy to measure and to study. But the fact is, and this is the point here, the health of an organization is actually more important than being smart. Because a healthy organization taps into its intelligence, if you will, and finds a way to get smarter over time. Whereas a smart organization that's not healthy loses much of its intelligence and its effectiveness. So what I tell all leaders is this, and I completely believe it. First, focus on making your organization healthy. Then you will get smarter and smarter over time. And that's how you build a healthy and resilient organization.
I saw you writing in the background, and I actually took a photo of I'm going to send it to you afterwards. Let's see what you wrote on the board.
I wrote like a study about promises. And this is sort of the formula of a promise is, in order for a promise to exist, it's put into the universe, it's made, but then for it to have any power, it has to be accepted. And then when the promise is kept, you create trust. But if you put a promise into the world and it's accepted and then it's not kept, it's broken, we actually kill the trust. Or if you put a promise in the world like you're describing your culture, and the people you're pulling in, you're attracting, don't accept that promise, then you really don't have a promise to keep. So you can't build trust. So it's this whole idea of promises made, promises have to be accepted. And then when they're kept, we build trust, and it keeps this rotational cycle.
David Libby is actually on YouTube, and he says, interesting, healthy on an individual and group level.
Yeah, you want to unpack that, David? So it starts at the individual one-on-one level. I guess this is what I'm getting at here. You know, we're bringing people into the organization, and their individual promises that we're setting up, that we're making with our people that we attract, and they accept it, then it's really us to work together to keep it. And it's and when the individuals start to keep their individual promises, then they end up keeping the whole entire organizational promises. It's kind of how we make it easy.
You know, there's something that I've been, I want to kind of unpack a couple of ideas. We're just going to keep peeling it back. And it's almost this concept of agreements, Walt, this idea of, I've heard this a lot lately, and I'm trying it, I'll be, open and honest, even on a personal level with my own family. And
Right.
The phrase is, always assume good intent.
Yes.
It's so powerful if in fact it is the truth. And if people have that agreement coming into any session, which is I may criticize, I may call you out, I may, I'm just going to address the elephant in the room. But if my intent is good, the objective is for us to figure out how to move forward together, not to shame, not to humiliate, not to fire, not to expose. It seems easy enough.
So those are, and so continuing going down that path. So I spent a lot of time, in my mind thinking that I've talked to a lot of people, but I'm talking in my own mind about agreements and promises. So the agreement has to start somewhere. It's pushed into the universe, like will, like just the force of will. It's created from the universe, and you push this agreement or this promise into the world, and then it gets accepted. It's almost like magic in a way. And so you're talking about going into a meeting where we're going to have really great open conversations, and you're promising the people every single week we're going to unpack the really important stuff. And if you run it, and you run a program where every single week the intent of the meeting is to find the most important stuff we need to talk about, that's a promise, and you need to run that agenda the same every single week. So it's not just what's happening in the conversation, it's the structure you put around keeping the promise that's so important. That how you keep these promises that have been accepted is how you make like dealing with people easy. A lot of people don't think about the way the weekly meeting runs as being a promise. Starts on time, ends on time, has the same agenda. This is the language that's being used inside of it. That's a big old promise. Explain it to the person you're making the promise to, they accept it, and together you run it. It creates trust.
I want to add another interesting layer to this conversation. I love this where we're heading, and I want to introduce a third element, because you can make a promise, or maybe a fourth element, right? You can make a promise, you can keep a promise, you can break a promise, and I want to add in the concept of reminders, because sometimes you need to remind someone about the promise that they made, and it's not just you versus me; it's we. And so I actually had a really great conversation over a very large Australian-sized beer at the Outback Steakhouse in Detroit's
Foster's?
Evans Terminal.
We can't use brand names. Is that why you called it that?
No, it was
Okay.
no, it was a Bud Light.
Okay.
And unfortunately, it was so large, this beer, that I paid the price on the flight back. But I digress. But in the conversation, I was talking with a fellow coach. He reminded me that often he reminds his leadership teams about the very, very first thing that they ever did on their journey, which is he asked them a question: are you willing to be your best?
Yeah.
And when you witness that promise broken, but maybe starting to fray, that's when you have to remind people. So this is I think this is we've almost created these 4 layers. Instead of make a promise, keep a promise, or break a promise, binary, a reminder that says you've got to preserve and protect the promise. And maybe the best way to do that is to just keep reminding people about that promise.
Or you put a system in place that consistently reminds them.
Exactly.
Or lets them know what they're doing during the day is actually a promise. So when we have this system we run, and so you'll be in a meeting, and if you take a to-do, that to-do is due in 7 days. Hey, remember that too? Can you get that done in 7 days? That's the promise you're making to us. Joseph, think hard. Can you get that done in 7 days? That's your promise. That's the reminder of the promise. So really great systems built in should be allowing you to do the promise reminder all the time, which is like a sub promise and a sub acceptance. This is my TED talk. Hadn't come out yet, but it's all about promises.
I will be in the front row of your Uncle Walt TED talk. I just jotted down the phrase. We can share this quote if you like, if you'll give me 50% attribution. But lack of accountability is a broken promise.
Well, or is it a poorly made promise?
Perhaps. I know exactly
I
what
would
you mean
argue
by
that it's more a poorly made promise. Like you're not even you're assuming that the person who, take it all the way back to a job description. You interview somebody, that's a promise, man. Here's the job description. Here's all the stuff that we're expecting you to do. And normally those are poorly written, or they're old. And the person thinks they're accepting this promise, but it's really a different promise that you're not being clear on. How the heck? I'm a public school boy. I use a different language. How the heck are you going to keep that promise? So it really is up to the organization to be super clear on what they're pushing into the world, and then allowing the individual to accept it. And then what's cool, that creates health. And like Lencioni was talking about, then that health creates more organizational intelligence. It just gets strong and just spools up, man. You get it right, and that whole video is awesome. By the way, go ahead.
I mean, speaking as a public school boy, I do have a built-in. So instead of saying "how the heck," if you wanted to say "how the," but I can apply that for me. You don't have that luxury, by the way. You see. Do you notice this show is very different to the other show? This is me. This is me at my core. If you didn't realize, I am mischievous. I'm imp-like.
And I was looking at, heck, man, what am I, chopped liver? I was looking at your background. It's beautiful backgrounds. You're wearing different, more clothes that are more comfortable.
More clothes.
What are you doing, man? I mean, are you ripping me off here? I thought I was going to get the full Joseph Jaffe, man.
You're getting it. You're getting it. You're going to want a refund soon. Let me tell you. All All right. So in
Keep rolling.
in a very awkward and beautifully imperfect way, we're almost creating. I can see the thread developing, because we started off talking about culture and promises, and you've put a particular amount of work and energy and IP into. We played around with the idea of bite me, of this concept called bite. Your statement is your company's power is defined. Again, words are intentional. Your company's power is defined by those employees who buy in, feel included, have trust, and are engaged. Those who have bite. And so I'm going to use the analogy and ask you, as opposed to, there are companies whose bark is worse than their bite, no doubt. But in terms of, I'd love you to walk us through these four. And now we have an interesting lens, which is promises made versus promises kept.
Yeah, right. So what do you want to know?
Talk us through buy-in, inclusion, trust, and engagement.
Yeah, so
again, if this is so easy, why is everyone not doing it?
Well, so these come off of the 7 critical needs that are behind us over here. We'll talk more deeply about that. But it's not only a culture system. It's not only a trust, approach. It's not only an engagement approach. We're trying to make sure that we need to surround ourselves with people who are bought in. That's our dream as an entrepreneur, and people who feel like they're included and want to be included and know how they're included. So feel included it's not inclusion like in the DEI world. It's like, I know how I can be included here. We're always trying to drive high levels of trust. And then, engagement and trust are very overlapping words. If you look at where I want to be in 10 years, is I want to be I want this whole bite piece of the 7 critical needs to have replaced Gallup as the de facto measurement of employee engagement and how you take action. And I would like for the bite and the 7 critical needs to be the way that we measure how healthy your culture is, and then take action through operating systems that exist out there. So, this is it's not just one little engagement or trust or healthy. It's all of these things to have a great culture. They got to be bought in. They got to be active and included. They have to have high levels of trust that allows you to have really open conversations. And then they got to be engaged. And engaged is about really you're measuring their energy. What's the energy that you kind of hold back? It begins with a D. Come on, Walt. I can't believe you can't remember this right now. Discretionary energy, Joseph. They carry this discretionary energy around with them in their life. They're giving you this much energy, but there's this whole stack above that they can put in or not. And when they're engaged, they're putting that energy into the organization, into the thinking, into the culture.
Okay, so
thank you.
I'm a geek, and when I hear something, one of my favorite quotes, Uncle Walt, is Diane Arbus, who said, "It's what I've never seen before that I recognize." I've never heard this concept before, but I recognize it, and for its power as well. This implies we always talk about burnout. We always talk about this idea that we have limited energy. But this is a really, really interesting concept, that we actually have energy that we choose to withhold. We choose to store, to hoard, to not want to share it. It's almost like I have an idea that worked for me in terms of my business development or something that's worked for my business, but I'm not going to share it with you. Why? Because I don't want you to benefit from it, which of course is unbelievably selfish. So discretionary energy, I would assume this matches up with what we call people that are either disengaged or actively disengaged, which is totally. Again, going back to Gallup.
Yeah, going back to them, but it's a choice. They're either putting it in or not. They might not be doing it psychologically, but if they know that they're bought in, man, on where you're going, and they see that they're included in this ride that we're part of, high levels of trust and engagement, then that discretionary energy comes into the game. You know?
Yeah, I love it. And just to go back to again the concept of bite and how brilliant bite really is.
Some people
Is
hate
that
it, you know. Some people really dislike it. They're repulsed by it at first, but the book is called Attract and Repels. But go ahead, Jeff.
We're gonna get to that. Look, I mean, you know, I always said, and in fact, in many of my presentations, I would tell marketers and brands that the enemy is, well, first of all, I would say, by the way, we all want people to love us, and we can't stand it if they hate us. There's nothing worse. But my definition of hate is someone that goes, I love you, I just want you to work a little bit harder to earn it. So hate is just the other side of the love coin.
There you go.
The enemy is apathy, indifference. It's people that just don't care or give a damn. That will kill us every time.
Right. Yeah. So keep unpacking this bite piece then.
Yeah. So when you look at one of the things so for people that are watching, we teach something that we call LMA, which is leadership, management, and accountability. And it's almost a formula: leadership plus management equals accountability. But there's a beautiful little kind of saying that says, if you think that LMA stands for leave me alone, you've completely missed the boat. Yeah. And what I see in your bite is the fact that buy-in, inclusion, engagement, to a lesser degree, trust. These are all about actually, you know, we call it connecting the circles. It's about it's about checking in with someone. It's about someone that actually feels their work is meaningful. That's what it is, that they're making a difference.
Exactly. Yeah.
And how do you know, right? How do you know when what you do is meaningful? What are some of the ways, for example, that someone can feel like their work is meaningful?
Yeah, is that a question?
Yeah. I'm asking, you know.
It's person by person, you know, and I think what we're in the whole model that I'm putting out there is the organization just needs to be super clear about what their beliefs are, or what their passion is, or what their products are about. And they have to be able to communicate to the individuals, this is what we believe. And then, you know, this is what you're accountable for to help us get to this belief. And it's up to the individual to go, that's valuable. That's motivational for me. You know, so it starts with the organization. It starts with the visionary. It starts there. And so it sounds like I was dancing around a little bit, Joseph, but you know, we define it, and it's up to the individual to go, yeah, that has meaning for me. Right.
Yeah, I was giving you a little softball as well, because I was going to see whether you took the layout, but yeah, it's exactly what you said, because it's on an individual basis, as in feedback from my boss. It is probably at a departmental level too, in terms of my team, and then from a cultural level in terms of understanding where the business is going and what my role is in terms of helping it get there. Even if my role is nothing, you know, I say nothing, even if my role is focused on working on the factory floor and making sure mispicks are minimized.
Or the typical, and exactly. And they understand the way that links. This is a classic story of, you know, Sir Christopher Wren, big architect, building St. Paul's Cathedral. In the story, he goes to the stonemason's pit, comes to the first guy, says, "What are you doing?" He says, "I'm cutting these stones to a certain size and shape." Goes to the next guy and says, "What are you doing?" He says, "I'm cutting these stones for, you know, certain waves." He goes to the third guy, and the guy stands up, straightens himself, and says, "I'm helping Sir Christopher Wren build St. Paul's Cathedral." Or the similar story is JFK was walking through NASA, runs into the janitor. "Why are you running so late? You know, why are you working so late?" He says, "Well, I'm helping put a man on the moon." You know, so it's just this connecting it some way, and then allowing them to know, you know, there's the belief in leadership, the belief in where things are going. This all comes from millennial focus groups. We can jump into that later. But then you tie that whole piece once you ask to tell them this is what we're asking you to believe in, then you got to get super clear on this is what you're accountable for. This is how you contribute to that belief. from like a daily actions and, what's your purpose here? And then this is how you can be measured and know how you're measured toward contributing to this thing you're being asked to believe in. And then if you want, then this is how you're heard. This is the way we listen in order for you to be able to contribute your energy into this thing we're being asked to believe in. It all just stacks up, and all the arrows need to go in one freaking direction. That was the idea of the arrows inside the heart. We're getting in there and trying to honor each person with the ability to say, my belong arrow aligns, my believe arrow aligns. I'm not going to go through the whole list, but and we can actually talk to them every 90 days and say, are you still aligned? What is there in here? What is, it's just, there they are. Wow. But we got some new words. Did you get AI to put some of that stuff up there?
No, this is from your website.
Transparent performance feedback. The word performance always annoys the crap out of me. So
I love the fact you're critiquing yourself at the moment, which is.
But like the word performance is such a. It's the arrow pointing in the wrong direction. I mean, right? It's just such a judgment thing as opposed to measured. Is they need to be measured. It's just, are we transparent about this? And does these measures help you form your strategies and your thinking and where you're going to put your discretionary energy? Is a measure? Are we doing this for you and not to you? Where performance just feels so done to you as opposed to for you. So I got to find that.
What's so interesting about this is that suddenly I'm looking at this and I see it completely differently. It's almost like a beautiful mind. I can see each one of these 7 critical needs being represented in terms of arrows. I just see the lens. I think of growth, right, in terms of up and to the right, together, herd in terms of 2-sided arrows. Performance is fine because it's just one of them, and it's
like contributive toward the believe and accountable.
Yeah, so I actually I just see it. I just see it beautifully represented in terms of annotated. Maybe that's what the performance gave us as well. But these are 7 critical needs, and this gets into what Lencioni says. And I want people to recognize that ultimately what we're talking about is he's saying that healthy comes before smart.
Yeah.
I don't think people actually understand what that means and why it's so important, because it just seems softer and more ephemeral. It just doesn't seem as concrete and tangible and quantifiable. How do you get someone to recognize that healthy is the foundation and smart is what you build on top of it, not the other way around?
Yeah, so I'll do love and respect, which used to be a term we used a ton in our cult that we're part of. I'll do love and respect is always followed by, some negative thing. But, I love these books that are written by the likes of Lencioni. I mean, great frameworks, but also call them 60,000 foot books or 20,000 foot books, Joseph. How do you take that great idea at 20,000 feet and bring it to the ground? I'm a to the ground guy. I am an entrepreneur. When I graduated from college, if you're an entrepreneur, you're one step away from being in jail. That's a whole different story. But how do you bring it down? I'm also a statistics and accounting guy. So the irony is, even though these things on the left feel really ethereal, is that the right word? They're actually very concrete, because you get it's up to the organization to define what positive alignment to these 7 things are. So core values is one of those, sort of not really one of those smart things, but definitely strategy and be what you're being asked to believe in is huge. Smart. What you're accountable for, how we do the work, huge smart. How we measure things, absolutely smart. How we listen and measure and collect data, that's absolutely smart. How we develop people, smart. How you keep work-life balance, not so much smart. But they go back and forth, and like he was talking about But if you put it in the lens of promises, of these 7 promises, you define what they are, you bring people in, and they constantly align to them. And if they don't, they can self-select out. Then that energy he drew at the top, that's one of my favorite parts of that video, is he talks about the healthy energy and the organizational intelligence growing and how it feeds back into the smart, and that grows. But it's not 2 separate things. It's one. You know, and they should work completely together.
Yeah.
You know, I've never run something like that.
It also comes to, I mean, we unpacked, and now we're packing and repacking them and leading up to the book. But what I realize is that we say healthy and smart can also be, of course, an acronym for specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timely.
Yeah.
And you spoke about the 7 needs as 7 promises. And here we are back to the idea of an agreement. Whether that agreement is formal or informal, whether it is explicit or implicit, whether it is implied or not. This is the essence of how to create. I think you even use the concept of, maybe paraphrase it, of a profitable culture, a culture that can be powerful and profitable.
Yeah, so I say I help organizations create cultures that drive cash flow. Is it specific?
Yeah,
because everybody loves. So when you got a great culture that drives cash flow, all your people are wonderful. You don't have any cash problems. That's a pretty great place to be.
Well, you know, I mean, we have a tool that we teach called cash flow drivers, and I'm thinking to myself, why the hell is culture not one of them? I don't think that one's ever come up before, but maybe it should.
Well, it is, but especially if you look at if you define a well-done culture as people having their 7 critical needs met. One of the parts of underneath accountable, I mean, that's just a whole area in its own spot. But, you know, when people know through a seat and then through a role, I talk about companies rolling on roles, we get to the nuances of the way jobs really get done. But if you can attach to a role a measurement that the individual can see is driving to EBITDA or cash flow, that's part of the strategic plan, then they actually have their why of why they're doing that role and why we might be measuring X, Y, or Z. You know, we got to be able to connect the entire puzzle and connect this entire flow from the lowest common denominator all the way up to the ultimate piece. You know, it's just, I don't know if that was too deep or not, guys, but there's a whole nother line underneath that accountable. I call it the hinge question. Belong and believe are kind of do you align with where we're going? And then the other ones are the hinge of how are you involved in helping us live into this belong and believe? That's a little bit of a tangent, sorry, but
no, we're gonna. I mean, we're gonna tee up the almost the final piece of the puzzle, which you've used an analogy of magnetism. The idea of attracting or repelling. When I had Gino actually on this show, I used the phrase core values and he used the phrase culture. He said, I want to rather talk about culture instead of core values. And we typically talk about core values as the means or mechanism to attract, repel, recognize, reward, review, and even to the point where our own employees will self-select. They will, they will opt in or out or avoid you like the plague if, as he calls it, your vibration is different to theirs.
Welcome to our refrigerator. Hop in. You like it in here? Oh, it's smelly. I don't get it. Core value is just a cornerstone. They're one of the clearly it's the very first item with belong. You know, to belong, you got to have these core values because we're going to surround you with people who have these values. And if you have them, it's going to be nirvana. If it's not, it's going to be hell on earth, and we're going to spit you out. You know, so it's just that. So that's just one cornerstone.
What are some of the others? Because we talk about, even when I with Gino is maybe I'll ask you the question: how is culture different to core values? What is the overlap? What is different?
I would say that in order to define your culture, you've got to be able to meet the 7 critical needs. That is my definition of creating a measurable culture. So it's not just core values, it's just one part of it.
Which of them, when we think about, I mean, I'm going to pick one very intentionally, not randomly, but this idea of being heard. And the word communication, it's a little bit of a red herring, because we can talk about email and we can talk about BC and politics, etc. But truly, the idea of being heard. What does that? What does that mean?
Okay, here we go. You ready? Okay, we're doing like this. All right. So do you remember earlier you were talking about arrows?
Yeah.
So this you kind of went to the exact spot that people run into all the time. So we talk about the amount of effort that has to be made or owned in each one of these 7 critical needs. And so the idea here is over here is the organization. This arrow is the individual. And so we're saying this is what it means to belong. These are our core values. We're going to keep these core values. If you got them, it's going to be great. If you don't, we're going to kick you out. The organization owns like 85% of the effort. Don't get caught up in the percentages, but the majority, the lion's share of this effort. And it's up to the individual to align themselves to it. And then what we believe in, this is where we're going, this is what our product is, or our strategy, it really is up for leadership and management to really say, this is what we're doing. And it's up to the individual to say, yes, that's something I can believe in and align to. But then at some point, we really want the individual to be bringing the thing that lives between their ears called their brain. And this is where, with accountable, in order for us to get to this thing we're believing in, we need you to come in and do these minimal things. I mean, 65%, we're going to define it. But we also want you to bring in your healthy so you can also be smart. And we're opening the door like 35%. Every 90 days, is this still the best thing for you to be doing? Is this how we should be doing it? We want that to open. When it comes to measured, we still have to define like 65, 75%. We need you to be hitting these numbers. We also want to open it up where they can bring their thoughts and improvements to the game. But then this is where it flips. We get down into heard, developed, and balanced. All we can do as an organization is to be super clear on how we listen. When the channels open, when the channels close. And we got to be great at saying every day, every Tuesday at 10, the channel opens and this is what we're talking about. If you want to be heard, you need to step in there. But it's up for the individual to step into that promise we're making. And when it comes to develop, it's the same thing. This is how we offer for you to be able to step into your own development. It's going to be very consistent, but it's up to the individual to put the effort in. And when it comes to balance, we can't mind meld with them like Spock and understand what's truly going on in their heart. All we can do is say, this is what the work life looks like. This is what we compensate. And the individual has to bring their effort in to meet that. Does that help at all? It's a little bit of a little tangent, maybe not straight 12 o'clock what you're asking, Joseph, but this is what we mean is you just got to define that stuff as an organization to keep the promise.
No, I actually, it helped solidify a couple things, and I'll just repeat it back to you in terms of also my frame or my reframe. The first one is you have to actually have, we would call it sometimes the pulse. You have to have those mechanisms, whether it's quarterly, daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, whatever the case may be. And to that end, have people understand what those agreements are associated with those moments in terms of
let me go from there. In the full-on, what we call the BITE survey, 7 questions, the question is, am I heard? Or reading the need to be heard. It's one part of the question is, I understand and embrace my organization's mechanisms for listening. That's what we're saying. And then I'm participating in those mechanisms. It's deeper than these questions, right? These things right here. So that's a lot of these questions that we're asking. So you got to have the mechanisms in place. Perfect exact word I use, mechanisms. What are they? Do the people understand it?
And then there is another part as well, which the second part of what I heard you saying is this idea. And then, and this is a very, very powerful point that you make. It's not one-way traffic. The employee is part of the agreement, which means at some point they have to also step up. It's almost this idea of be careful what you wish for, but when it comes true, are you truly going to step in? Are you going to show up? How are you showing up? So that it isn't just always on the manager, the boss, that truly there is a two-way flow, a 360-degree, however you want to call it. That is so important. And by the way, they're not going to do that if they don't feel safe.
No, they won't. They won't step into herd or developed, not at all. And they won't step into any of the how the arrows go. Yeah, it all. But the effort arrows are a really big part of helping folks not see how this is overbearing. You know, your systems, your smartness should really be helping you with accountable, measure, herd, developed, and balance. And where you're carrying most of the load is constantly making sure that the person understands, the people understand what it means to belong, and they're acting inside of your like cultural norms. And then the next one is making sure they're always understanding that they believe or not and helping them believe. I could go a little tangent sometimes here. I'm not going to write this book, but sometimes I talk about it. It comes from my mother-in-law. When the baby's crying, she always would ask, have you checked the diaper? And it almost goes the exact same thing here. If your employees are crying, there's something in the diaper. It's one of these 7 things that you're not doing. Or smelly refrigerator, to use that other side.
Right, and we're back to smells again. So
and I'm still trying to think. It's not auditory. It's what is it? And it's not.
I know. Olfactory? No. Is it
olfactory?
Olfactory. Where is ChatGPT when you need it?
I don't know. I think it's olfactory.
I don't know. You know, in the factory. Please look out for Walt Brown's new book, Poop in the Diaper. Have
you checked the diaper? How to lead a great team.
Have you checked? No, I'm telling you, like we got a lot of gold in this one, Jerry. Poop in the diaper. Exactly. Have you checked the diaper? From fridges to diapers. I mean,
smelly culture. Have you checked it? It's a smelly refrigerator. Have you checked the diaper?
You know, I mean, if people are watching this and they're thinking, why I can never get this 1 hour back of my life, too bad. You need to take away the fact that your people are your most valuable resource, investment, quite frankly, line item on your P&L. We all know this to be true. Yeah. Are you investing in them? You know, are you investing in making sure that these promises are being made and kept? I'll show you very briefly. You have this beautiful, you know, you've got the 7 questions and the 7 yeses. And of course, you ask the question, imagine what your organization could achieve if everyone could answer yes to the 7 questions below. Easy, right? Number 1, yes, I belong. Number 2, yes, I believe. Number 3, yes, I understand what I'm accountable for. Number 4, yes, I understand and embrace how and why I'm measured. Number 5, yes, I understand and embrace how I'm heard. Number 6, yes, I have opportunities to develop. And number 7, yes, I am balanced. What's the goal here? 7 out of 7, Walt?
Yeah, it is. If somebody's not yes, then they're a flight risk.
And there you go. And all that training and all that development and all of the work out the window, they end up at your competitor, all because you broke your promises.
Which is great that they ended up the competitor because they probably didn't belong or believe. So let's send them over there. It's awesome.
Unless they were in the case, you know, of that employee that was just underappreciated and undervalued, I suppose.
Yeah, and now it sounds like you're driving toward the close, but this is really important, is you can lose somebody who is actively aligned to these 7 things. I call those the people who care, to active no's faster than those folks will ever live in neutral. You're actively engaged. Your people giving you their discretionary energy. You can lose that to negative energy faster than they will ever just fall into neutrality. Because these people we're talking about, they bring it. They care.
So we learned about positive energy, negative energy, neutral energy, discretionary energy. Are you paying attention? It's time for you to amp up your effort, and clean out the fridge, change the diaper, and actually recognize that, remember, this is all in your hands. It is the one controllable element that truly will lead to sustainable competitive advantage. What are you doing about it? That was rhetorical. Here's what you're doing about it. You're going out to buy, attract, or repel 7 keys to magnetize your company and build the culture of your dreams. If you want to find out more about how you can take a bite out of more profitable culture, go to bite7.com. And of course, connect with Uncle Walt on LinkedIn. One thing that's different from the other show is we get to make sure every one of our guests is, they are passed through a rigorous people analyzer, and we determine if they are a hit or a miss based on Chuck Norris. And this is what Chuck Norris had to say about you, Uncle Walt.
You are Chuck Norris approved.
And we will be back soon. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching the show about hope, positivity, optimism, and if there's time left over, a little bit of marketing with your host, multiple author, and global keynote speaker, Joseph Jaffe. If you like the show, tell a friend or two. Please subscribe to the show. And if you want to get inside news, previews of upcoming guests, and much more, visit josephjaffe.com/subscribe to sign up for the show's newsletter.
And despite the best ministrations of your wife, you still look ugly.